So for this episode of the World Triathlon podcast, we get to speak with our reigning world champion, USA's Katie Zaferes, who bounced back from an accident in the Tokyo test event to win the 2019 Grand Final and Series title in style in Lausanne. Katie, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Great to be able to talk to you. Can you set the scene of where you are right now and give us a little glimpse into your life and routine as, somehow we're already into August.
Yeah, it's crazy. We are currently in Hampstead, Maryland in the US, which is where I grew up. So I spent a large portion of my life in this town. And Tommy and I came here basically when we were in Florida when all the coronavirus happenings began. And so we rented a van one way and drove up with all of our stuff from that, which was a training camp. And then we've basically been in Maryland the whole time. We did go a bit down to North Carolina because we're trying to find, now that it seems like a nice time to have a home, we're trying to find one. But yeah, my parents have been nice enough to take us in. And training wise, at the moment, I just had a down week last week where I basically did no training at all. To this week getting right back into things, hoping that there might be a bit of racing on the horizon.
Your home that you've been staying in was actually the home you grew up in, is that right?
Yep. Yeah, so it's pretty cool to just be here. There's certainly lots of memories. On this past Tuesday, we were doing a track workout at my old high school, which is kind of funny because my high school doesn't even exist anymore. They shut it down. So there's no more North Carroll students, but the school building is still there. And luckily the track's still there too. But I was running around in circles looking at all the fields thinking, oh, that was like where I did like soccer tryouts and had all my soccer practices. Like this is where I ran my first meet, and just lots of little memories that were coming in.
Spending so much time at home and so on, has that sort of helped with staying, kind of trying to keep positive and on an even keel, or just been even more surreal?
I guess it's helped in a way. I mean, it's definitely been a little bonus of getting to spend more time with my family because we're on the road so often that it's not something that we really have gotten to do in the past. I mean, this must be the longest I've been in Maryland for the past at least 7 years, if not more. And I think it's just nice to have that support and a bit of like normalcy and the reminder that like sport isn't everything, and just to have like the comfort is really nice. We did a bit of the reason why we went down to North Carolina was to have more of like a high performance environment, because being home, it was like more challenging to motivate to get outdoors and not just get outdoors, but like do my job as I would normally do with triathlon. So North Carolina kind of provided that, like it was very easy to train and there was a lot of different areas. So like there were so many trails, it was easy to get out the door on the bike, and there was like a nice swim set up for us where we could actually swim with other people, which was super helpful. So I guess it's a bit of a mix. I mean, we're back in Maryland now until we know what the next move is, just because we thought it'd be easier to kind of pick up and go from here versus be somewhere where we'd be like packed up already, but have to like come back and get our bike bags or whatnot. So it just makes it, and also not knowing how long to pay for a place to stay or things like that. So this just was a lot more stable place to be for the uncertainty of what this next month or two will be.
Hamburg is obviously the first race that people have their eye on for the start of September. So you said you had a down week last week as well. Was that sort of with a view to this week being really starting up and cranking things up towards that date?
Yeah, the down week was, I mean, we'd had like a good 5 weeks of pretty solid training. And like normally during this time, like we're not usually base training for like like 6 months. So I mean, a lot of it was just to make sure that we rested and like regrouped. I mean, it was as much for me mentally as it was for me physically, although I was getting pretty tired. Like the last like week we had training where Joel had to adapt it to just be more endurance and not so much like workouts or real sessions. But yeah, now, so to take that week break, we'll now make sure that for whatever the remaining time is of possibly racing, that I would had a little time to recover both mentally and physically.
Physically, your readiness is building up, but you know how, even in terms of being able to travel at the moment, how's that working out or looking?
I think it's not working out so much right now. No, but right now, as an American, we're not allowed to travel very many places, and Europe being one of them. The USOC and I know the ITU and like the German Federation. There's a ton of people that are working on like behalf of the athletes here to see if we might be able to get tested when we get there, or quarantine, or what kind of stipulations might be necessary for us to race. But it is very strange, like the race being now less than a month away and having kind of no idea if it's going to work out and if we will be allowed to travel, or if it's like pending the restrictions. If it were like a 2-week quarantine, then it really wouldn't make sense for us to go, because 2 weeks just wouldn't be like super great for being race ready. So like my coach Joel Filial, he had, when this all first kind of started and there was a lot of uncertainty, the idea was always to like be in a state of readiness, and then if there were races on the schedule, to like kind of build for them, and then if the race got canceled, like then we would adapt our plans, but we would prepare as if the race was going to happen. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I think for me, it really helps to have the races on the schedule, even if they don't end up happening, just because it gives me something to train for. It motivates me to do the work and like do the intensity, because if I just knew I wasn't going to be racing for a really long time, I think it would be a lot harder to kind of get myself out the door and like train properly.
I noticed, for example, you'd sort of done a few posts about going meat free and so on. Is this the sort of time that you've been able to try out a few things like that?
Yeah, I suppose, like in a way. I mean, I'm not going fully meat free, but I'm just having more meatless meal options, and definitely I would have considered myself like eating meat for basically almost every meal of the day, every day. And now it's a lot less of that. It's probably almost halved. But I still do eat some meat. But I think just having like the awareness of other goals, and having, I mean, it really helps to kind of have an idea, like I mean, I know Meatless Monday has been a thing for a super long time, but I would never really, I don't want to say I didn't pay attention, but I had never participated myself. And now every time I do a Meatless Monday, I'm like, oh, like it's another day of like being able to do that. And I think that also helps, particularly for like just starting, being in the US and being in an area where it's a little bit easier for me to just like find my way around the grocery store and figure out what I'm doing type thing, just because I think it's comfortable, which makes it easier, versus like being in a different country and not really knowing all the labeling or things like that. So that's been part. I've also, there's been a lot of, I guess, awareness being brought to being anti-racist in the US and across the world. And I've been doing a lot more reading in that realm, which has really been eye-opening for me, and something that I would have to say that like I haven't been so aware of, or I guess in a bit oblivious with having some white privilege on that. So I've been doing a lot more reading of history and kind of just how to be the best anti-racist I can be. So that's something that I can definitely say has brought me into more of an educational, personal education sphere as well, more so than ever in the past. I think in a sense, when we travel, it's easier to just not pay attention to the news at all and not pay attention to a lot of happenings, because we're just further away from it. And part of being home that's been like, we're more in it. It's not avoidable, and it shouldn't be avoidable. So that's been like an added bonus of trying to find that balance of not being overwhelmed, because there is a lot going on in the world, and a lot of not very nice feelings and discomfort. But that doesn't mean you should shy away from like learning and figuring out, okay, like how can I make a difference. And I think before I would get overwhelmed, because it's like, well, how am I possibly supposed to like fix everything in the world? And then you realize like you don't have to fix everything in the world, but you do have to fix yourself to a degree and play the part that you can.
Yeah. And also, when I suppose behaviors and policies have such a direct effect, it's quite rare that they can have such an immediately direct effect on you and your career, and leaves you in a even more frustrating position, I guess, that it's so out of your hands.
Yeah, and I guess it's just like, I mean, it's funny because I found like a lot of parallels with racing and training, and like we're trained to get uncomfortable. And so like in training and racing, and so like bringing that now to my personal life, but also you also are trained in racing, and in racing is the thought that like you can only control like the controllables, right? So like myself, and like I can try to have a positive impact on the people surrounding me, but ultimately I am the only one that I can control. and and I think that brings itself to all the things going on in the world. And like now, like my like what I'm feeling with like personal life is like trying to do what I can and act in a way that I would like other people to act.
It's a difficult time.
It is, yeah, it is very challenging, and it's really hard to navigate through. My dad was watching some, like, I don't know, like 30 for 30. I don't know. It was some like sports moment with like the baseball teams, and at the end they were all hugging and celebrating the win, and all I was thinking was, oh, like it's so sad that right now like we can't do that. We can't hug, we can't celebrate. And I'm very excited for whenever we can again. That'll be pretty special.
And if it is Hamburg, then it won't be in that lake, which is presumably not the kind of swim that you would want your first swim to be first swim back to be either.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see where it will be, and what the well, yeah, like basically everything. I'm excited to see what the course would be like, what if it changes how we race at all, in the sense of like COVID stuff. But it's, as Joel has said, any racing will be good racing. So
Yeah,
that's that's our hopes.
for sure. And a lot of friendly faces that you won't have seen in a long time.
Yes, yeah. It's been nice being able to stay connected through like all the technologies of like WhatsApp and, I mean, Instagram and everything, but it doesn't replace seeing people in person and getting to connect that way.
And even as someone who needs, you always seem to thrive on the preparation and so on. Have you been able to kind of make peace with the chaos that's going on, or do you find yourself kind of just crying out for a little bit of normality? And
I'd say I fluctuate with acceptance. I would say I've done like I felt pretty good for most of the time, and just had like moments of just feeling a little lost and um lacking direction, or like why, or questioning like why am I doing this. I actually had we were on a bike ride yesterday, and we got to like a fork in the road, and there's just this sign that says like is the letter Y basically for how the roads were, and I was like, oh, that's like pretty
A sign and a half, yeah.
relates with me right now. So but I think it's been good, because any time that I've started to feel a bit more uncertain or a little like off balance because of everything that's going on, I've had my family, I've had Tommy, I've like been really good at communicating like where I'm at with Joel, and he's like, if we've needed to change training a little bit because of like more feelings and emotions than anything, then we've kind of adapted just a bit. And then even like I talked to my sports psychologist still during this time, who is like for performance, and obviously we're not racing, but I've kept that appointment scheduled for like basically once a month, and each time I'm like, well, I might like cancel it if I realize, if like I don't need it, but each time I've really enjoyed just like talking to her and just talking things out, and having like a sounding board, or validating my like concerns or like frustrations kind of thing. So I've definitely had moments where it has been less than enjoyable like in this time, as everybody in every situation has, but I think my overall feeling is still more like positive, and I'm really glad that like the Olympics weren't canceled and that they're postponed for next year. And whether like next year happens or not, like to me, I'm just glad that there's a shot, there's a chance that we'll still be going, and that I have that like clear direction to aim for the next year.
The Tokyo qualification, you know, that is obviously such a massive thing for when racing does get back and the qualification process gets back underway. Has that sort of also kind of compounded that sense of just really wanting to get back out and racing as soon as possible and get that qualification nailed as soon as possible?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would be nice to have that done. And like, I mean, I'm really driven by racing, and like when people describe like, are they a trainer or a racer? Like, I would say not having races on this schedule, or not being able to race, has been a challenge for me, because even though I do enjoy training, I enjoy training for something. So so I'm looking forward to when that maybe we hit some more normalcy with the racing schedule being back to normal.
Yeah, so the relationship with Joel at the moment is obviously entirely virtual, but I mean, presumably you're very used to working kind of remotely with him as well, not for such long periods of time. Can you talk us through how you first started working with Joel, when that was, and what presumably was for you then like a huge amount of excitement at working with someone like him, and everything that might bring to your racing?
Yeah, so in 2014, I was looking for a coach, and also dating Tommy at the time, who was coached by Joel, or well, still who was coached by Joel then and still is. But he, Tommy had recommended Joel, and I was looking at Joel's group of women, looking at how well, like how awesome they were, and just um, how experienced they were in triathlon. So when it came to the grand final in Edmonton, basically, so I think I finished ninth or something. And I finished the race, and I was like looking at the results, and I was like, man, if I was on Joel's like group, then like we would have had like 25% of the top women be just from his group, which I thought was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
at the time I was talking to him anyways about asking him if he'd have me on his team. So he was always my first choice. It was just kind of to see if he would have space for me or want me on his squad. And I really appreciate how Joel goes about getting new people on his squad, because it's not just like, oh, you have good results. It's like, okay, you like, yes, the results like do have some weight, but a lot of it's like personality and how well people are going to mesh with the group. So after that race, I'm pretty sure we met for breakfast or something, and he told me that I could be on the squad. And so I was really excited. And I went to my first camp in Portugal with the group that December. And so I've been with Joel now since December of 2014. And it's been awesome. And the group has like changed as the years have passed. Like some athletes have like come into the group and others have gone and done different things or retired or whatnot. But it's been really cool watching the group evolve and watch kind of Joel evolve too as a coach.
So, I mean, Tommy was obviously already part of the group then, so that helped massively.
Did help to have him a little bit.
Yeah, but also, yeah, as far as joining a new group must be kind of quite a nerve-wracking thing, is it, as well? Who were the leading women at the time within the group?
Yeah, so Sarah True was part of the group, but then also like I felt like it just had different leaders, because Carol Routier, Vendela, they were all part of the group. And then when I came on, Lisa Perderer was on the group and Rachel Klammer. So I'm not like, I would say Sarah would probably have been the most like experienced, and because she is American as well, like the person who I kind of looked up to the most for it. But I also felt like everybody kind of had their strengths, and it didn't matter like the ages or anything, because people would kind of find where their leading spot was. And I thought that was really cool, is that it wasn't always one particular person, but it kind of would shift based off of what we were doing and what kind of skill was being worked on.
In terms of the way that training has evolved as well, from a mid-season session in 2014 to a mid-season session last year, are they presumably the basics are still there, but have they changed and evolved a huge amount in a short space of time, do you think?
I think they have. I think the basic premises and like the underlying just kind of like platform that the team has been built on, and like the type of training we do has remained relatively similar over the years. But definitely there's been a few changes. Also, I feel like it's like, for me, I now have built in like a lot more like skill specific sessions or race specific sessions, in the sense of doing a little bit more, and we don't do a ton of it, but doing a little bit more brick sessions so we can work on those transitions, or doing like parking lot efforts on the bike to get that kind of crit style racing and get ready for the technical courses. So there's been like, we don't do a ton of all out efforts for any of our training, but we do a lot more like building and being able to put in the volume, but like consistently over the whole, well, I guess over like years now. But I feel like it all adds up, and it's one of those reasons that I feel like I've just continued to kind of climb over the past few years, is because we've always done work that is like hard but manageable. And can just be built off of year after year after year. So we never have really tried to do like anything crazy, but it's just been kind of steadily building from one year to the next.
Yeah, and as well as those sort of techniques and the training loads and so on, there's like last year I remember you saying that you would just looking to race more assertively, and that sort of showed almost straight out of the gate from last season. So where does an idea like that come from? Is it from you, or would Joel take you to one side and say, have a look at this, or do things like that more come from the athlete themselves?
I think it's a combination of factors, but I truly believe that like that type of change can only come from like me personally. Like it's like someone telling you like to do something or change something, but you can only change it once you realize how valuable it is or like how to do it. So like I'm sure that like Joel like would guide me in how I was racing to race more assertively, but it took me kind of being like feeling it, I guess. And so a big part of that was 2018 and Gold Coast, where I raced more assertively, and like I didn't I came in, I don't even know what I came in, I think third, but like I didn't get the world championship because Vicky beat me, but the way I raced was a more assertive taking control of the race than what I'd really ever done in the past. And by doing that, even though like it didn't work out like 100%, it showed me that I could do it and how to kind of grow from there. And I'm a big like, I love reflecting on races and trying to figure out, okay, like this went well, this didn't, how can I be better? And part of being assertive is a lot more, I mean, it takes like a physical ability to do it, but it takes the mental like dedication and execution of it. And so a lot working on like that side of things with like myself and like resources that I have, but also like talking to my sports psychologist and like trying to figure out in training, how do I practice this in training to be able to do it in a race.
Yeah, you said that the people joining his group, there has to be a certain personality that works, and that's the personality presumably that people like being around. But also for Joel, who's got an awful lot of athletes out on the course at any one time, he needs you to be honest when you're having your post-race debrief, I guess, and you have to be able to tell him exactly how you're feeling and be honest with yourself and with him, for him to then be able to improve you as an athlete.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool because like now that we've worked together for like few good years, it's like he knows me like really well. So when I start getting like nervous or anxious before a race, he'll be like go back to your process, like write it out, because he knows I'm like I enjoy writing out my goals. I enjoy writing out my schedule. I enjoy like anything I like actually using a pencil or pen and getting down on paper. And by doing that, it gets myself like out of my brain. And so like in a time when maybe I'm not remembering to do that, like he'll notice it and be like, do this. And then I'll send whatever I wrote out by hand to him, like take a picture, not like by mail, but and like he'll kind of look at me like, yep, that like looks good. Or like if I missed any like kind of critical pieces or goals, we'll discuss them. So it's been very neat to see that happen. And also like another thing that I really respect is how he's able to individualize everybody's training. So even though we're a group that works together, there's also a lot of individualness based like built into our training program. So like there might be, all of us might be doing a track workout, but pending the intervals or like how long we're going for like repeats, it might be different based off of different people. And I think that's one of the biggest ways that our whole group has managed to be successful, is that everybody's program is built for them, not necessarily everybody's doing the same thing because we're a group.
And then going into whether it was the Tokyo Test event or the Olympics, as it should have been, how does the team dynamic and training work then within the USA setup? Do at some point does Joel kind of have to hand you over, as it were, and then you're within that? Or
no, we basically all are doing our own individual things with our individual coaches. So it's kind of funny because when it comes to racing, that's like the first time we're seeing each other and racing with each other or training or like we don't train with one another.
So with regard to Olympic qualification and obviously the depth of talent within the women's team there, I mean, does that help in a way that you are kind of all quite separate? I'm not trying to sort of lure you into discussing something awkward here, but there must be a sort of otherwise a bit of an elephant in the room type situation when it's, plus you throw in the mixed relay.
I guess like I suppose there's probably bonuses to both different situations, because I mean the nice part with like working with Joel and being the only American on our team is this, that like I really can just focus on myself, and I'm just trying to be like the best version of myself without having like a direct comparison day to day. But I guess the other part is like if you are training with another American, then you see where you're like you can compare, and it's gonna have its positives and it'll have its drawbacks depending on how you see it or how it's viewed. But I mean, I think the nice part about it is that we can all be in whatever place is best for us. So like some people are, some of like the USA team is training together, and I think you can feed off each other in like a good way for that. But it is challenging because you can also compare yourself in like a negative way, as like any comparison can go.
Yeah, so you're coming to like a big qualification race in Yokohama and you don't actually have that baggage of arch competition because it's not been part of your build up really, right? I mean, it's everyone has the same goal, so it's kind of it's not as much on the radar.
And with the team one especially, like you're just trying to do the best you can and as well as you can for USA. So it's almost, I guess there's strategy in a sense, but there's also, it's just like you're going to try and go as fast as you can and put the US in the best position possible by the time you hand off or tag off.
Yeah. We were looking back at the Tokyo test event last weekend as well. Obviously there was an incident that you would rather forget on the bike there, but in terms of what you did get to know about the course and the swim and so on,
it was something I was expecting worse for, because I know how terrible swimming in warm water is. So and it wasn't going to be a surprise that the water felt like that. So it was nice because leading into the race, leading into just the Tokyo test event, not just the swim, but the race in general, like we were preparing for the heat, and like we were doing heat preparation, but also like I think the mental preparation of just being ready for like the discomfort of like warm water or like how that might feel. So I feel like I finished the swim and I was like, oh, that wasn't like as terrible as I thought it would be. Also, I really like double lap swims where you can like dive straight in. And I remember like really enjoying like that, coming out of the ramp and then pushing off to dive in, because that's like a part you can kind of catch up on if it's not during the actual swimming portion of it. You can actually do some little minor catching up just from the dive in. So but it's definitely like a challenge, and I would have been so thrown off if expecting the water to be cooler and then came in and had that.
Yeah. And then as far as the bike course, I suppose the nature of the accident, for those listening, there was you just kind of hit the barrier there relatively early on, didn't you? But presumably it's not something that you're hugely going to worry about, given the fact that it was such an unusual occurrence. It's not, you don't feel like that it'll be playing on your mind too much.
No, I never thought I'd crash on a straight. That was never a concern. so now it is. No, I'm just kidding. But it was like talking to like my sports psych after the race. She's like, it's not like that's not a common thing. All I know now is never to look back, never look back. but but I really actually liked the course and the flow, and even saying that, having like crashed myself into a barrier, like I thought it was a pretty cool course where it just has so many like little different elements and segments to it. And even for being like Tokyo, where you'd be like, oh, a flat course. I mean, I didn't even get to do very many of the laps, so I'm sure it was more tiring than what I got to do. But just like it does have those little bumps in it, or like going through the tunnel and things like that, and even the ramp like created over the sand. So yeah, it's a
mentally challenging course as well as physically, right?
Yeah, and just there's a lot of different like pieces of it. But I think like for the Olympics, it's just harder because there's a lot. It's a lot more different of like an atmosphere, or like a lead up into the race. Like it's a lot more built up, and there's just like a more emotional aspect to it than like any other race. But I also feel like that's part of figuring out the Olympics. And for me, like Rio, I would say, like looking back, there were a lot of ways I would have gone about that race a bit differently, where I think like a lot about just like focusing on more of the process things, which I thought I was doing then, but I think I lost it a little bit, where it became more like wanting to podium and having those process goals, but then maybe being a lot more infiltrated by the outcome goals type thing. And also just like one of the biggest things I learned from Rio was like everyone had talked about that uphill going into the race, but not very many people had talked about the downhill, which that was the scariest part for me. And so I felt like I had focused a lot on, like, my mind was more focused on the downhill, when I could have looked at it in a different way of like, that downhill is going to challenge me, but I'm strong enough to do blah, blah, blah. And that would be like changing that focus from like kind of fear-based to strength-based, because ultimately days before the race, you're not going to be able to change like skill-wise, you're not going to be able to change much.
No, I suppose also I was thinking more the sort of possibility being higher of someone doing something a bit unexpected, maybe, you know, on the third lap of the run, kind of really putting the gun down and asking a question that maybe in a World Series in Montreal they might be less inclined to do so early on, or so on.
Well, I think the cool thing is, like, after so many years of racing, we've experienced a lot of different scenarios. So probably one of those, whatever would happen in like Tokyo, would have been tried before to like some degree. I mean, like that was like thinking of Flora in Bermuda a few years ago when she absolutely crushed the field. Like that could be like a Tokyo tactic, you know? And like that's something that the way she raced that changed how like prepared me for the next time I raced her, because you're like learning from like, well, you like can't guarantee that just because she's one person and you're like a pack of 5 that you're going to be able to catch them. So
yeah.
So it's like learning, I think having all these races to experience and kind of build off of and learn from is really good, because the more races you have, like, I mean, 4 years is a long time with a lot of races. So so 4 more years of being able to learn from different race dynamics is really helpful.
I was talking to Nicholas Birk a couple of weeks ago, and she said that her coach had impressed upon her the likelihood that it would boil down to a sprint finish. So she had already had one with Lisa just a couple of weeks or months beforehand. So she said that sort of stood her in good stead, but also that she knew that to get a sense of where Lisa was, she could just look at the big screen down the final chute that was obviously set up for the VIP and the spectators and so on. And so she was sort of watching herself on the big screen coming down the thing. And that was something that kind of blew me away a bit, in terms of having that presence of mind at that moment. So yeah, it was just if you had are there any specific elements like that you've maybe thought about, or that kind of finer detail of a race?
Yeah, I think it's always just to, like, for me, it would be to be ready. Like, always, I mean, I kind of race in fear, like, in the sense that I never count anybody out, no matter where they are in the race, until I'm crossed the finish line. And I think by racing in that way, it's just a huge respect for, like, my competitors, knowing, like, it's not finished until you cross that line. And so I've had the Brits teach me to always be ready between Vicky in Bermuda and, like, Georgia Taylor Brown in Leeds. Like, I guess for me, like, I'm just like you were asking about the different types of, or different moves people might do for the Olympics. Like, I'm learning from every move from the people during our normal WTS races to hopefully be able to be ready and be present, kind of like Nicola was saying, during the Tokyo Olympics.
And then I know I asked you about this, and I wondered if Tommy had any thoughts as well. Just having talked to Claire Michelle about the Belgian Hammers and the mixed relay, and I was trying to kind of drum up with some names for the American team as well, as we start this sort of campaign to try and get some snazzy names for the mixed relay teams. Did you have any thoughts? I particularly like the Brazilian seleção, like the selection, which sounds it kind of somehow elevates it, and yet is very simple at the same time.
Yeah, well, I outsourced for this one to Tommy because I had no idea, but he said the 4th of July, which I kind of liked.
Yeah, that is good. That is good.
So that's from the Zaferes family. Can be put in the voting box for names for the U.S. team.
All right, nice. Yeah, I'd had someone had put forward the Dreamers as, sort of tying into the American dream thing.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was trying to go with something star, but then I didn't like what I came up with. So we'll stick with 4th of July.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks very much. It's been great to catch up with you, and hear how everything's going.
Yeah, thanks. It was fun talking.
Yeah, well, hope to see you soon. Tommy, likewise. We'll catch up somewhere at some point.
Heck yeah. He says, heck yeah.
All right.
See you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.